Do you ever feel like you're standing on the edge of your life, looking across a chasm at the dreams you once held close? Does the weight of unrealized aspirations and unmet desires press heavy on your heart? It's a deep pain, isn't it? That sinking feeling when the life you're living feels so far removed from the life you once imagined for yourself, a life filled with joy, purpose, passion, and fulfillment. Maybe you've wondered, how did I get so far off track? How did the excitement, the hope, the vision for something more slip through my fingers? If you find yourself in this place, know that you are not alone. Many people walk through life feeling disconnected from their dreams, feeling stuck, held back by invisible barriers, wishing for something different, but unsure how to make the change. But here's the truth that I want you to hold on to right now. The gap between your reality and your dreams doesn't have to be permanent. That longing you feel in your heart, those quiet moments when you ache for more, those are not signs of failure, but whispers of a future still waiting to unfold. This journey toward the life you truly desire begins in the mind, with the way you see yourself and the world around you. As C.S. Lewis so wisely put it, you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Whether you're young or old, whether life has been kind or full of hardship, you still have the power within you to shift your path. It all starts with perspective. The most profound changes come not from rearranging external circumstances, but from a transformation in how we view ourselves and our lives. When you begin to see yourself as someone capable of change, someone worthy of joy and fulfillment, the walls that have kept you bound begin to crumble. Your dreams don't disappear with time, they're simply waiting for you to rediscover them. It's time to shift from a mindset of limitations and what-ifs to one of possibility and why not. But let's not pretend this is easy. Often, the greatest obstacle lies within our own hearts: the fear of failure, the voices of self-doubt, the wounds of past disappointments that tell us we aren't enough or that we've missed our chance. You may feel these burdens acutely, and that's okay. Acknowledging your pain is the first step toward healing. C.S. Lewis himself understood the complexity of human pain and longing. He wrote about the deep ache of unfulfilled desires, not as a curse, but as a signal pointing us towards something greater, a divine promise that there is more waiting for us, beyond the present moment. And so, I ask you, what would your life look like if you allowed yourself to believe in that promise? If you dared to hope again? What if you began to trust that those longings, those whispers of more, were placed in your heart for a reason to guide you toward a future brighter than your past? Change begins with a decision to see differently, to align your thoughts and actions with timeless principles that have guided countless others toward transformation. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're living truths that have the power to melt away your old limitations and open up new realities. Today, I want to share with you 10 principles that have the power to radically shift your life. These principles come from the collective wisdom of history's greatest minds, philosophers, leaders, poets, and spiritual guides, and they have one thing in common: they speak to the heart of human potential. When you internalize these lessons, you will find not only growth but also healing. You will discover the courage to rise above the pain of yesterday and step into a future filled with hope and possibility.
I encourage you to stay with me on this journey. Together, we will explore how these principles can elevate your mind, uplift your spirit, and bring you closer to the life you've always dreamed of living. Let this be the moment where you choose to dream again, where you decide that your past doesn't define you, and where you embrace the possibility that extraordinary things still await you.
If this message resonates with you, I invite you to like and share it with others. Let's create a community where we encourage each other to pursue our dreams, where we uplift one another in our struggles, and where we believe that transformation is always possible. Stay tuned, because what comes next might just be the key to unlocking your best life. Can I get an amen from you? You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. C.S. Lewis.
Have you ever found yourself asking, why does my life feel stuck? Or why does it seem like no matter how hard I try, I can't escape my past? It's a pain that runs deep, the feeling of being defined by your circumstances, trapped by the weight of past mistakes or the hardships of today. You may wonder if things will ever change, or if you're destined to remain in this cycle forever. But what if I told you that where you are right now is not the end of your story? That your current reality, no matter how overwhelming, is just a stepping stone toward a future full of possibility.
C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This wisdom calls us to shift our perspective, not by ignoring our pain, but by seeing it as a starting point rather than a destination. Just as so many great men and women throughout history rose from adversity, so can you. Your circumstances, no matter how bleak they may appear, do not have the final word. The power to change lies within you, in how you choose to respond, how you choose to envision your future, and how you align your life with the wisdom you already possess deep within. What would it look like to truly believe that your past does not determine your future? Imagine releasing the burden of old mistakes, the weight of rejection, or the sting of failure. Imagine reclaiming the power you've given away to those circumstances that have seemed unshakable. Transformation doesn't begin with the removal of obstacles, it begins in your mind, in your belief that you are capable of rising above them. In fact, C.S. Lewis understood this deeply. The essence of who you are is not limited by what you see around you. As he reflected, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. What does this mean for you? It means that inside you lies the capacity to transcend every obstacle you face. It means that while your circumstances may feel like they are closing in on you, your spirit is vast, limitless, and brimming with potential. You are not defined by the challenges you face. You are defined by how you rise from them. The greatness within you is not something you need to earn, it's something that's already there, waiting for you to awaken to it. Think of those moments when you felt overwhelmed or defeated, when the world felt too heavy to carry. Now, imagine shifting your focus inward to the truth that you are more than your current struggles. The very act of recognizing your power, of seeing yourself as an infinite being with boundless potential, changes everything. Suddenly, your problems become smaller, your vision grows larger, and the path ahead becomes clearer. This is the power of perspective, and it's the key to unlocking your transformation. Have you ever stopped to consider the immense strength that lies within you? A strength so profound yet so often overshadowed by doubts and fears. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." This resonates deeply with the truth of who you are, not the conditioned self weighed down by past failures or the expectations of others, but the soul crafted by God, filled with limitless potential and divine purpose. How often do we shrink back, believing the lie that we are too small to make a difference, too weak to overcome? It's easy to feel overwhelmed when life throws challenges our way. We wonder, why is this happening to me? But what if, instead of seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance, we saw these moments as divine opportunities for growth? What if, as C.S. Lewis suggests, every trial is a step in our journey toward becoming more like the person we were created to be? Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny, he wrote. And isn't that the essence of life? Every hurdle is not an obstacle but a lesson in resilience, a chance to develop new skills, expand our compassion, and deepen our wisdom.
Now, take a moment and reflect. Where in your life do you feel stuck? Is it in your relationships, your career, or perhaps your sense of purpose? Imagine what could happen if you stopped viewing your current situation as a dead end and began to see it as a doorway to a new adventure. C.S. Lewis reminds us that there are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. What if your limitations were not signs of defeat, but signals for transformation? Picture the possibilities that could open up if you allowed yourself to take that bold step forward.
When we embrace our innate worth, we reclaim our God-given power. We stop living in fear of failure and start walking in faith, believing that with God's guidance, every challenge can become a stepping stone to something greater. So what risks would you take if you knew you couldn't fail? What dreams would you pursue if you trusted in your ability to manifest them? Allow yourself to dream boldly and trust that the Creator who formed you has also equipped you with everything you need to succeed. This is the journey of transformation, not just a change in circumstances, but a shift in perspective that opens up endless possibilities. You are not merely surviving life's storms, you are being shaped and refined into the fullest expression of who you are meant to be.
Have you ever wondered what holds you back from truly living the life you're called to? Is it fear, doubt, or perhaps the overwhelming weight of expectations? As C.S. Lewis once reflected, you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. The real battle often lies within our perception of ourselves and our circumstances. It's not the limitations around us, but the limitations within us that imprison our hearts.
Ask yourself, what if the reality you're living is shaped by the choices you've been afraid to make? What if stepping into your purpose, however uncertain or unclear the path may be, could be the key to unlocking a life of abundance and fulfillment? As Lewis would remind us, courage, dear heart, that first step requires a shift in mindset, a conscious decision to see beyond the temporary, to embrace the unknown with trust. You're not meant to stay bound by fear or confined to the comfort of the familiar. Each day presents a choice. Will you let fear dictate your steps, or will you choose faith? In every small decision, you have the opportunity to move closer to the person you were created to be. When doubts arise, remember that growth happens in the discomfort of risk, not in the security of certainty. As you press forward, you'll find those fears and doubts begin to fade, slowly replaced by a deep trust in God's guidance and your own ability to navigate the storms of life. By stepping out in faith, you give yourself permission to break free from the chains of the past, and in doing so, you will discover not only courage but also a profound resilience that builds with every decision to leave your comfort zone. Embrace uncertainty as a chance to grow. Just as Lewis once embraced the mystery of faith, knowing that true transformation comes when we trust in something greater than ourselves. So, what choice will you make today? Will you remain captive to fear, or will you dare to step forward and live in the fullness of your God-given potential? Have you ever found yourself drifting into the past, consumed by what-ifs or paralyzed by fears of the future? It's a common struggle, isn't it? Yet, in our fixation on what was or what might be, we overlook the profound simplicity and power of the present. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "The present is the point at which time touches eternity." This striking insight reminds us that it's only in the present moment where we can engage with life as it truly is, not as we fear or imagine it to be. Lewis understood that when we allow ourselves to dwell in the past or future, we lose our ability to influence the here and now. But how do we truly embrace the present? Does acknowledging the pain of the moment mean surrendering to it, or does it offer an opportunity for transformation? By being fully present, you aren't running from difficulties, you're facing them head-on. Life's challenges, after all, aren't meant to be wished away but met with courage and faith. Lewis himself, in his many reflections on suffering and joy, demonstrated that we must engage with our trials rather than avoid them. He wrote, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Being present doesn't mean pretending that pain, doubt, or frustration doesn't exist. It means allowing ourselves to experience life as it is, raw, unfiltered, and sometimes uncomfortable, but knowing that in the present moment, we can choose our response. It's here, in this conscious space, where God works within us. He asks us to show up, not perfectly but wholeheartedly. By practicing mindfulness, we cultivate the art of paying attention to the life happening right now, without judgment or fear. It's a practice of gratitude for what is and trust in God for what will be. Isn't it comforting to know that the present moment holds more than just fleeting time? It is a space of encounter with the divine, where we can choose peace over chaos, faith over fear, and love over bitterness. Instead of being prisoners of our past regrets or future anxieties, we become participants in the grace unfolding right now. So, the next time you find your mind wandering or your heart racing toward uncertainty, ask yourself, what is this moment offering me? How can I respond to it with courage, clarity, and, most importantly, faith? Mindfulness, as Lewis might agree, is not merely a tool for calm, It's a way of aligning our lives with God's presence, where eternity meets our present reality. In this, we find not just relief, but renewal. In the rush of our daily lives, how often do we pause to truly live in the moment? Our minds, so easily swayed by distractions, tend to drift between the past's regrets and the future's uncertainties. But what if, like Lewis suggested, we chose to embrace the present moment with purpose? In the Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis speaks to how our minds are often tempted away from the present, either by anxiety over what's ahead or by lamentation over what's behind. But the present is the only moment where God can meet us, where grace and change occur. Mindfulness, then, isn't just a technique, it's a way to awaken to God's presence. What would your life look like if, instead of being consumed by external circumstances, you chose to anchor your attention on the here and now? Notice the rise and fall of your breath, the feel of the ground beneath your feet. Observe your thoughts, but don't let them control you. You have the freedom to decide how you respond to each moment, an ability Lewis called our freedom of will. This freedom gives us clarity, a calm perspective from which we can make wiser, more thoughtful decisions. Yet, it's not just about managing challenges, it's also about savoring blessings. As Lewis wrote, gratitude looks to the present and love to the future. Fear, avarice, lust, and ambition look ahead too often. We dwell on what's lacking, losing sight of the quiet joys around us. Pause for a moment and reflect on the goodness that exists right now. A warm conversation with a friend, the comfort of home, the beauty of a sunset, these are all reflections of God's grace in your life. When you cultivate gratitude, you begin to shift your perception. Lewis often spoke about how what we fix our attention on becomes our reality. If we focus on scarcity, fear, or negativity, that's what we will see. But if we choose to focus on blessings, possibilities, and hope, the world opens up in new and beautiful ways. Your mind, once cluttered with worry, will start to see abundance in small moments. This practice of mindfulness, of living in the present, and acknowledging God's hand in all things shifts your entire experience of life. You will become more resilient, able to find hidden blessings in difficult situations. Just as alchemists sought to turn base metals into gold, you too can transform the challenges of life into growth, wisdom, and grace. How would your perspective change if you saw every obstacle as an opportunity for God to work within you? In this, you become a co-creator with God, refining your spirit through the fires of everyday life.
So today, challenge yourself. When your mind begins to drift, ask yourself what is good in this moment. What can I be thankful for, even in the midst of uncertainty? By embracing the present with an open heart, you'll find that God's peace and wisdom are already with you, ready to guide you through whatever comes next.
The third principle to transform your life is rooted in the concept of accepting complete responsibility for your reality. It's a challenge in a world that often teaches us to shift blame or expect a savior from outside. How often do we wait for someone else to change our circumstances, only to find that no one is coming to our rescue? As C.S. Lewis once said, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. This profound truth reminds us that ownership of our experiences is not about shifting fault, it's about reclaiming the power to shape our future. But what does it truly mean to take responsibility? It's not about assigning blame to yourself for every setback, nor is it about feeling guilty for the hardships you've endured. Rather, it's about recognizing your ability to choose how you respond to life's challenges. When faced with trials, do you ask, "Why me?" or do you dig deeper, searching for the lesson within the pain? The strength to rise above circumstances doesn't come from denial, but from accepting the present moment as it is and deciding to grow from it.
Consider Lewis's reflections on suffering. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. Pain is a megaphone, amplifying areas in our life that need change. When we resist the victim mentality and instead look for ways to learn from hardship, we find that even in suffering, there is room for growth. How can you use your experiences to become stronger, more resilient? What if the obstacles in your life are not just setbacks, but stepping stones toward your true purpose? Taking full responsibility also means confronting the narratives that we allow to control our lives. Many of us cling to stories of inadequacy, stories that tell us we're not smart enough, not worthy enough, or that life is stacked against us. These beliefs, while deeply ingrained, are not the ultimate truth. Lewis's works often encourage self-examination, urging us to question the very fabric of our assumptions about the world and ourselves. Could it be that the stories you've told yourself are limiting the life God intended for you?
By challenging these limiting beliefs, we begin to break free from the chains of self-doubt. What if you viewed every challenge not as a roadblock, but as an opportunity to write a new chapter? Imagine, as Lewis often alluded, that the next page of your life story could be filled with hope, redemption, and transformation. Taking responsibility for your life is not a burden but a powerful tool that enables you to co-create with God, shaping your destiny through the choices you make today. In every moment, you have the power to choose whether it's how you respond to a difficult situation, the mindset you cultivate, or the beliefs you hold on to. Responsibility is not a weight that drags you down, but an invitation to rise higher. It's the realization that, as Lewis poignantly wrote, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Will you embrace this call to responsibility and begin writing your extraordinary story? The pen is in your hands. What will you do with it? Have you ever felt the heavy weight of unmet expectations pulling at your soul? So often, we cling to certain outcomes, convinced that only when we reach them will we find peace or happiness. Whether it's the dream job, the perfect relationship, or a certain milestone, we tell ourselves, just a little more and then I'll be happy. But what happens when those things slip away, or when they don't bring the fulfillment we expected? C.S. Lewis insightfully noted, "We are far too easily pleased, often seeking temporary satisfaction in things that were never meant to sustain us eternally." The human condition is one of constant striving, grasping at external markers for validation. We attach our self-worth to achievements, thinking that success or recognition will fill the void inside. But this attachment only tightens the chains of dissatisfaction. Lewis, in his work Mere Christianity, argues that earthly pleasures can never truly satisfy our deepest longings because they were never meant to. Instead, they point us to something greater: God's eternal plan and our identity in Him. When we base our joy and worth on fleeting accomplishments, we lose sight of this eternal perspective. So how do we reclaim our sense of peace when life doesn't go as planned? The answer lies in releasing our grip on outcomes. It's about shifting our focus from what we can't control to what we can. Instead of obsessing over the end result, what if we embraced the process of becoming? Much like Lewis describes our journey as a shaping of souls. In his analogy of the house, Lewis writes that God isn't merely patching up small leaks, He's building something entirely new, far beyond what we can imagine. What if we saw our efforts as part of a much bigger picture, trusting that even when things don't go as we hope, they are still working together for a greater good? When you let go of rigid expectations, you begin to find joy in the journey itself. You pour yourself into your work, your relationships, your dreams, not because they define your worth, but because they are opportunities to express your God-given talents. And when you align your actions with this higher purpose, something shifts. You begin to trust that your efforts, no matter the outcome, are not wasted. Lewis famously said, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." And this is the essence of releasing our attachment to results. Rather than striving out of fear or insecurity, you learn to take bold, inspired action. You recognize that your value is not tied to whether or not things unfold exactly as you planned. You understand that setbacks are not failures, they are redirections, building resilience and character. And as you learn to surrender the need to control every detail, you discover a new kind of freedom that comes from knowing that you are part of a grander story, one written by the hand of God. In letting go of attachment to outcomes, you reclaim your power. You shift from a mindset of scarcity, always chasing, always grasping, to one of abundance. And as Lewis reminds us, he who has God and everything else has no more than he who has God only. Your worth, your joy, your peace, they are not found in the things of this world. They are found in the quiet confidence that, Come what may, you are loved, you are enough, and you are exactly where you need to be. Have you ever wondered why failure holds such power over us? Why do we dread the sting of defeat, as if it defines our worth? Perhaps it's because, deep down, we're afraid that every misstep is a reflection of who we are, confirming our deepest insecurities. C.S. Lewis once remarked, "Failures are fingerposts on the road to achievement. What if we embrace this idea fully?" When we begin to see failure not as a personal flaw but as a teacher, our perspective shifts. Every stumble becomes a lesson, every setback a clue pointing us toward refinement. We no longer fear mistakes, but rather, we start to value them as essential parts of our journey. Imagine the freedom in letting go of the need to always get it right. Instead of holding on tightly to a perfect outcome, what if we trusted the process, knowing that even our so-called failures are part of a grander design?
But this shift requires us to also examine how we see ourselves. How often do we berate ourselves for falling short? In a world constantly reminding us of our inadequacies, it's easy to internalize these judgments. Lewis noted, "We are what we believe. We are the real tragedy is not in failing, but in accepting the lie that we are less than enough. When we're at war with our own identity, we limit our potential. We silence creativity, stifle courage, and play small in the vast potential of our lives. Self-acceptance, then, becomes the cornerstone of true transformation. It's the willingness to see ourselves as whole, not in spite of our imperfections, but because of them."
Radical self-acceptance asks us to embrace every aspect of who we are, our victories and our vulnerabilities. This is where real growth happens. When we extend ourselves the same compassion we freely offer others, we dismantle the inner critic and make room for authentic living. What if we treated ourselves with the same kindness and grace that we extend to a dear friend? What would it feel like to trust that our journey, with all its twists and turns, is exactly where we're meant to be? In this space of self-love, we release the need for perfection and open ourselves up to true freedom. Trust that the unfolding of your life, even with its messiness, is a divine masterpiece in progress. As you walk this path, remember that letting go of attachment to specific outcomes and embracing your full self flaws and all unlocks a deeper sense of purpose. You stop playing life defensively, guarding against failure, and start living boldly, trusting that every experience is working for your highest good. C.S. but with understanding and encouragement to rise again. Lewis often spoke about how humans, in their quest for perfection, fall prey to the false idea that failure defines them. Yet, as he stated, failures are fingerposts on the road to achievement. Every setback is an opportunity to extend grace to yourself and grow stronger in your identity. Think of the times you've offered a friend comfort in their pain. Do you do the same for yourself? If you wouldn't shame a friend for their mistakes, why are you so quick to shame yourself? The practice of self-compassion, as Kristin Neff suggests, invites us to replace judgment with kindness. But this kindness isn't weakness, it's rooted in strength. It takes courage to pause and say, "I am doing the best I can," and that is enough. It's about recognizing that God's grace covers you just as much as it covers others. Lewis reminds us that self-love, when aligned with God's will, equips us to set healthy boundaries, pursue our God-given dreams, and build resilience against life's storms. When you cultivate this form of love, you stop wasting time on self-deprecation, and instead, you begin investing in your healing. This is the path to becoming who God designed you to be. It's not about perfection, it's about transformation, the process of becoming whole in Christ.
Take a moment to ask yourself, what would it look like to treat yourself with the same grace God extends to you? When the harsh inner voice arises, try responding as you would to someone you deeply care for. Offer yourself a simple reminder, God is with me, and I am enough. Maybe it's as simple as stepping outside for a breath of fresh air, or sitting in stillness, acknowledging that God's love for you remains steadfast, regardless of your flaws. As you learn to nurture yourself in these ways, you'll tap into a well of resilience that will carry you through every trial.
Through the practice of self-compassion, and by aligning your self-love with God's truth, you'll develop the inner strength to not only bounce back from setbacks, but to thrive in His purpose for you. Self-love is not about indulging in narcissism. or placing yourself on a pedestal. It's about deeply understanding that your worth is not tied to external accomplishments or superficial appearances. At its core, self-love is the recognition of your inherent value, much like how C.S. Lewis described the soul as being infinitely precious. Lewis once wrote, "You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body." This understanding shifts our perspective inward, reminding us that our true worth lies within the essence of who we are, not in how the world perceives us. But how often do we equate our value with success, beauty, or external approval? How often do we forget that, as God's creation, we are already enough? When you begin to embrace this idea of self-love, you allow your inner light to shine brighter. It's as if a veil lifts, and you are finally able to see yourself and others through a lens of grace. This shift invites others to do the same, sparking a chain reaction of love and acceptance. However, this transformation doesn't come easily, especially in a world that constantly reinforces a scarcity mentality. We focus on what we lack, what's missing, and what we've yet to achieve. This mindset blinds us to the abundance God has already placed before us. As C.S. Lewis once reflected, we are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered to us. Gratitude is one of the most potent antidotes to this feeling of lack. It pulls our attention away from what's wrong and helps us see what's right. But gratitude is not just a fleeting emotion, it is a spiritual discipline that requires practice and intention. As Lewis often emphasized, true transformation requires not only a shift in our thoughts but also in our habits. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get caught up in the whirlwind of negativity? It's like an unending loop of focusing on disappointments. Gratitude, however, breaks that cycle. It reorients the mind to notice even the smallest blessings and, in turn, begins to reshape your entire outlook. Studies have proven that practicing gratitude has numerous benefits: lower stress, better sleep, and increased overall happiness. But beyond the science, there is a spiritual truth to this practice. When we are thankful for what we have, we align ourselves with a mindset of abundance. This openness allows us to receive more, not just material blessings but experiences that fill us with joy and meaning. It's as if God responds to our thankfulness with even more reasons to be grateful. Lewis described it beautifully in Mere Christianity when he said, "If you aim at heaven, you will get earth thrown in. If you aim at earth, you will get neither." One practical way to foster gratitude is through the act of journaling. Take a few moments each day to reflect on the gifts, both big and small, that God has given you. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to naturally look for the good. Another powerful way to cultivate gratitude is through expressing appreciation to others. Lewis often spoke about how acknowledging the beauty and goodness in others draws us closer to God. Have you ever taken the time to tell someone how much their kindness or strength means to you? These acts of recognition don't just uplift the other person, they also deepen your sense of connection and community. In a world filled with distraction and discontent, gratitude becomes a radical act of faith. It's choosing to see the good in what God has provided rather than fixating on what you think is missing. As you develop this discipline, you'll create a ripple effect in your life, one where you not only attract more blessings but also become a source of joy and love for others. Lewis's writings remind us that transformation is not an isolated event, but a communal journey, where the light you shine is reflected back to you in the hearts of those you touch. Gratitude, at its core, invites us to behold the very essence of life as a divine gift, a masterpiece woven in both simplicity and grandeur. How often do we pause to consider that our existence, frail and fleeting as it may seem, is the product of grace and purpose? C.S. Lewis once reflected that we are mirrors whose brightness, if we are bright, is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. In recognizing that we reflect a higher light, gratitude then becomes the lens through which we see the beauty and abundance around us, not as mere happenstance, but as a deliberate offering. But how do we reconcile this gratitude with the bitterness we often harbor? For many of us, forgiveness is a distant concept, obscured by the fog of hurt and betrayal. Is it not easier to cling to past wounds rather than release them? Lewis, in The Weight of Glory, speaks of the torment we inflict upon ourselves, likening our refusal to forgive to a resentment that binds us to the past, anchoring us in bitterness. We drink the poison of resentment, all the while hoping that the one who wronged us will suffer instead. Yet, what if we dared to see forgiveness as a key, not for unlocking the prison of another, but for freeing our own soul? Forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but releasing its hold on us. It's not about pretending the hurt never existed, but about allowing ourselves to heal beyond it. When we choose to forgive, we reclaim the parts of us that pain once took captive. In the same way, Lewis contended that everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea. Until they have something to forgive, we understand the challenge. Forgiveness asks us to step into the unknown with courage, acknowledging the scars but refusing to be defined by them. One practice of forgiveness that resonates deeply is writing a letter of release. Imagine writing to the person who wounded you not to confront them, but to express the depths of your hurt, and ultimately to say, "I release you." As the letter is torn or burned, envision your own spirit untangling from the grip of anger. Does this act not offer a sense of liberation, even if the other person remains unchanged? But what about when the person we most need to forgive is ourselves? How many times have we berated our hearts for not being perfect, for past mistakes, or for simply being human? Lewis wisely observed that to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable. Because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you, so must we not extend that same grace inward? Self-forgiveness is, perhaps, the hardest battle. Yet, it is through this act that we align ourselves with God's grace, allowing healing to flow where guilt once reigned. Through the lens of compassion both for ourselves and others, we find that the journey of forgiveness, though difficult, opens the door to a fuller, more abundant life, rich in mercy and peace. Forgiveness isn't just an act we offer to others, it's a profound gift we give to ourselves. It's a declaration that we are choosing peace over pain, freedom over bondage, and growth over stagnation. But how often do we wrestle with this choice? How often do we cling to hurt, fearing that letting go would mean betrayal of our suffering? As C.S. Lewis once remarked, "Everyone thinks forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive. It's true, isn't it? Forgiveness feels easy in theory but heavy in practice, especially when the wounds run deep. Yet, holding on to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer." But what if we approached forgiveness differently? What if, instead of seeing it as a concession, we viewed it as a path to transformation? When we forgive, we make room for newness to grow in our lives. Like Lewis so eloquently stated, getting over a painful experience is much like crossing monkey bars. You have to let go at some point in order to move forward. Forgiveness, much like embracing change, calls us to release what no longer serves us. And this brings us to another crucial principle for transformation: welcoming change with open arms. Change is inevitable. Life is in constant motion, as unrelenting as time itself. Our bodies, relationships, and the world around us evolve, whether we are ready or not. Yet, why do we resist? Why do we fear the unknown, even when it promises growth? As humans, we cling to comfort zones like safety nets, but Lewis reminds us, there are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. Indeed, the resistance to change often breeds more pain than the change itself. We create struggle when we attempt to control what is beyond our reach. But what if we met change with curiosity instead of fear? What if, like a child exploring a new adventure, we approached the unknown with wonder? Change becomes less of a threat and more of an invitation to discover, to adapt, to learn. Lewis once wrote, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This mindset of openness allows us to pivot, to adjust our expectations, and even embrace discomfort as part of the journey. In the end, life isn't about controlling every outcome, but about learning to flow with the tides of change. Sometimes, that means letting go of rigid plans or outdated beliefs that no longer serve us. Other times, it means taking bold steps into the unknown, trusting that what lies ahead is part of a greater purpose. Lewis captured it best when he said, Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Embrace the unknown, for it is where growth truly begins.